Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. I'm Eric and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is June 22nd, 2021, and today we are going to be giving our final New York City mayoral Democratic primary prediction right before the polls closed. So today is the first day that the rounds of the primary will start, and we will explain that later. And we are going to make our final prediction right before they close at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We are first going to explain how the primary is going to go down. Then we're going to explain the turnout numbers as compared to earlier predictions. Then we're going to explain some polling. And then we're going to give out our predictions round by round.
And I want to preface this by saying this was by far the hardest prediction we have ever made on this channel. Like by far, like this was harder than, North Carolina Senate or I don't know, Maine Senate or I don't know, Montana Senate. This
Georgia
was
runoff.
harder than Georgia runoff. This was harder than all of that, and you'll kind of see why. So with that being said, let's get right into it.
So first, let's start off with how the primary is going to happen. So New York City is doing something this year called ranked choice voting. Lucas has explained it in previous videos where other states have done it in their races. But basically, how it works is that the primary is divided into different rounds. All the candidates are listed on the ballot, and the voter gets to choose who they want to pick by priority. So first is candidate X, second is candidate Y, and then so on and so forth. And in the round, whoever gets the least amount of votes is eliminated, and their percentage of votes total is then split upon their the voter's second choice votes. It will make a lot more sense once you see us make these predictions on our spreadsheet.
And now I'm gonna head now to a brief background of the race. I'm not gonna get very much into it because we've done a lot of this talking before about this background of the race. If you'd like to see those videos more in depth, check out videos on our channel. I'll also leave links in the description. But who are the main candidates running right now? First of all is Eric Adams, former current Brooklyn borough president. He is considered the front runner. Kathryn Garcia has recently surged a lot. She is also considered, one of the front runners, former commissioner of the New York City Department of Sanitation. She surged pretty recently, actually. Maya Wiley is also a new surger that we in the beginning, and you can watch our previous videos. We were saying, oh wow, Maya Wiley has no chance of winning. Now she does have a chance of winning. She did get her name out there. She actually has AOC's endorsement, so she's another contender. Andrew Yang, of course, the final contender, former candidate for president, very well-known name, formerly like the top contender. That he's dropped to the secondary contender now, or secondary front runner now behind Adams, but he's still up there and it's a very strong chance of winning. And you guys can notice that I purposely left out Scott Stringer. I don't think he has a chance anymore at winning. Initially, when we first made these videos, he absolutely had a chance of winning. However, with the recent sexual assault allegations that have been made against him, he no longer has that shot at winning. He lost many progressive endorsements. So again, briefly, Eric Adams is considered more of a conservative, or I don't want to say conservative, but he's more of a moderate. He's considered more conservative than the other four frontrunners. Kathryn Garcia, also more of a moderate candidate, not as moderate as Eric Adams. Maya Wiley is a progressive. She initially fought with the progressive vote with Scott Stringer, but Scott Stringer really doesn't have a chance anymore. Andrew Yang also has taken more of the moderate lane in this election. Now we'll discuss early vote turnout. So let's start discussing exactly what drove us to make our prediction. So early vote turnout. We actually discovered that the turnout was actually pretty consistent between 2021 and 2013. Initially, though, when this graphic, this is by the way by Jesse Han from the New York City early voting tracker. Initially, we only had the EV turnout. So when we compared this 2021 number versus this 2013 number, we were like, whoa, this is really good for Adams. These numbers look nice for him because we do expect him to perform very well in the Brooklyn area as he is from there. He has well-known name recognition there. Queens is a borough that we think Andrew Yang will do well in because he is he's the first Asian American mayor potentially if he gets elected. I believe he's the second Asian American to run for mayor behind John Liu. But Queens has lots of Asian Americans, such as in the Flushing area. You have a huge Chinatown there, and Manhattan. We initially thought was Scott Stringer's area. Not anymore. We really don't know who's going to win Manhattan yet. Bronx and Staten Island, they're both battlegrounds. But now looking at the new results, which is EV plus absentee, the numbers are actually quite consistent. It only differs by around 0.5 for each of Queens and Brooklyn. What we did notice, however, was a much higher turnout in Manhattan. Now, who might this help? I honestly don't know yet. It could really go either way. It could end up helping Yang because he, started his business in Manhattan. It could help Stringer because, he's from Manhattan. He's the former comptroller, he's former Manhattan borough president. And maybe it does help Eric Adams because he is from that area as well, or is not from that area, but he does have pretty well-known name recognition in Manhattan. So it really could go either way for there. So what do we take away from this EV turnout? Honestly, not too much. It looks very much like 2013. So you'll see our predictions later on how we use these numbers eventually.
Let's switch over to the polling that has been coming out in recent weeks and recent months in the mayoral election. And as we've noticed in the past few elections, there were some instances in previous elections where polls were not necessarily the most representative of the actual results. And I think more likely than not, we can take these polls with a grain of salt, with a bit of skepticism, because um, first of all, the people who are producing these polls are potentially biased, and there are a few demographics such as Chinese people in some parts of New York City and Jews as well that are potentially being underpolled, and therefore we don't know what their view is, and they make up quite a significant part of New York City, as Lucas explained. But the general pattern was that over the progressing months, Andrew Yang has kind of been on decline, and Adams kind of took over in around between April and May. And also, Garcia and Wiley also took pretty impressive leads, like pretty close to when the rounds were going to start. But once again, not all of these polls are necessarily trustworthy, and some of these polls were produced from more progressive leaning pollsters that may or may not favor more progressive candidates. So in some instances, we made our predictions based on them, but it was definitely not our main indicator.
I want to add one more thing. Something I noticed with this graph, which I know a lot of people didn't notice before, was that it actually doesn't measure the average. It actually measures each singular poll. So this poll here is one poll. This poll here is one poll. This is one poll. This is one poll. So it's not an average. So it's not like he all of a sudden plummeted this far. It's the individual polls showing him going lower, and it's the individual polls showing Eric Adams going higher. So this Maya Wiley search here is a little bit misleading, and as Eric did mention, it's misleading because this is a progressive pollster. It actually had Brad Lander winning his comptroller race, which I don't think anyone has predicted. I think it's everyone so far has predicted Cory Johnson to win, unless this ages really poorly. But I don't think that will happen. But regardless, what we can take away from this is Yang has been falling from where he was before, and there are certain groups that are underpolled. And as Eric mentioned, Asian people, Jewish people, those are two of Yang's main base, parts of his main base. So if those areas are being underpolled, potentially that's underpolling, some of what Andrew Yang's support actually is. So it could really end up being higher than what this is showing. And for the moment you've all been waiting for, these are our final New York City election predictions before round one. We'll be making more predictions as each round comes in. But before round one, this is our final prediction. So we have a lot to debrief here. So how did we get these initial numbers? We essentially thought about the polling data. We thought about fundraising. We thought about donors. We thought about demographics, we thought about turnout, we thought about early vote turnout, and we compared that to everything. And these are the numbers we estimated. Obviously, as Eric said when we were making this, you have to be a madman to get this exactly on the dot. But this is our estimation. And as I mentioned earlier, hardest prediction we've ever made. And quite frankly, it could be wrong. It was a very tough prediction to make. So 26% for Eric Adams. Andrew Yang, we gave 22%. This is higher than what most polls are giving him, but we did want to compensate a little bit for that underpolling potentially. I think Congresswoman Grace Meng also pointed that out. Garcia 19, another front runner. Maya Wiley, I know that some people had her higher, but I don't think it's going to be like 16, 17%. I think it's going to be a little bit lower than that. Scott Stringer, 9%, again, fallen a lot since those scandals. Sean Donovan, we were thinking like 4 or 5. McGuire and Morales, we don't really need to talk about that much. They're not very much strong contenders. I'll pass it over to Eric now to discuss what happens next. So first of all, we predicted Morales would get out. She's been having a very dysfunctional campaign. I believe her campaign team is being accused a lot for toxicity, and I don't think she'll have enough votes to advance from the first round. Oh, there's one more thing to mention. When I'm saying first round here, keep in mind that there are other candidates. There are actually 13 candidates. I just put the main 9 on here. There's also Paperboy Prince, or Art Chang. I forgot her first name, but her last name was Taylor. But there are other candidates here. So this really isn't the first round, but this is a simplified version. So I'll hand it over to Eric now, where we think that the Morales transfers will go.
Right, and before I do that, I just want to explain our little legend here. So red means that in this current round, this is the candidate with the least amount of votes. And in the next round, as you see in round 1 and round 2, their red box becomes black because at this point they're already eliminated, and their black box will continue throughout the rounds because they got eliminated from that point forward. Now, let's jump into where Dianne Morales' votes are going to go to. Dianne Morales campaigned more on the progressive side. She believed in partially defunding the police, I believe, and she really pushed quite a progressive agenda when she was campaigning. And as Lucas said, that her campaign did not age well because of the alleged toxicity. So we really do think that her 2% is going to distribute into, and it's going to add up to the more progressive candidates, which would be Maya Wiley and Scott Stringer, the more prominent progressive candidates. So as you see, the 2%, we distributed it into 1.5 for Maya Wiley and half for Scott Stringer because Scott Stringer is the less popular candidate out of these two candidates. So, and you'll see forward that 3% we're going to distribute evenly so that the distributed percentages would add up to the original 3%, and so on and so forth.
Or I think 2%, but yeah, what you said was correct. Round 2. Raymond McGuire would be out. He has the least amount of votes. Again, these transfers are estimations. So where do we think his votes would go? First, we gave it to Andrew Yang. We gave Andrew Yang 2/3 of it, which is 2 points. That was because McGuire ran on a very outsider type of campaign. He ran as a Wall Street executive. He wasn't part of the city. He wasn't in this. It wasn't an insider. Yang is someone that's exactly like that. We gave 2 to that. Kathryn Garcia, we gave 1 to her. We weren't really too sure where to put it, but I feel like that would be the best option for people who might have voted for McGuire. But these are the transfers we have.
Right. So now let's go on to round 4. So as you see, Sean Donovan was out in round 3. So now we distributed 5% into 4 candidates. So Sean Donovan kind of displayed himself, as a more establishment type of guy. So it makes sense that his votes could possibly be distributed in such a way with the more popular candidates, such as Scott Stringer, Garcia, Wiley, and Adams. So kind of, most of the top 4. So what do we have here? So 1.5% is given to Scott Stringer, and same thing for Kathryn Garcia. And then Maya Wiley gets a bit less because she, I believe Donovan is a bit more moderate than Wiley, so I don't think a lot of Donovan supporters would automatically divert to Maya Wiley. And then Eric Adams is also at 1.5%. So basically, the 3 candidates come out with 1.5%. Most of them have pretty even percentages because these are the more establishment candidates. Andrew Yang, it is important to note, kind of stays the same here because that's just how the numbers worked out.
Yeah, and then Scott Stringer's out now, 11%. Whereas that get distributed, the bulk majority will be going to Maya Wiley, and that is because she is a very progressive pusher of these policies. Like AOC said, she first choice to Wiley, second choice Stringer. Stringer, very progressive, had lots of progressive endorsements from before. We gave Yang a tiny bit, and we didn't give more because Stringer really, really argued against Yang throughout the debate. I don't think he's going to get that much. Adams, this was a tough one too. Adams tried to connect himself a lot with Stringer, especially in the second to last debate when there was only 5 people. He was always agreeing with Stringer. Maybe he would get some of like those votes there. Garcia, we gave her 1.5.
All right, so let's move on to the next round. And as you see, the candidate that's getting eliminated, the percentage of the candidate that's getting eliminated is gradually getting more and more. And therefore, as the rounds move on, the shift in percentages is going to be more consequential because more of that percent, there's going to be more like of a percent, that's going to be distributed to people. So, as the rounds go on, that's where we're actually going to see some results. So what do we have in round 6? So we have that Garcia was getting eliminated. We think this because, it's Lucas and I were going back and forth on this. Kathryn Garcia recently decided to team up kind of with Andrew Yang to kind of fight against Eric Adams. So they went, in New York City to campaign together and kind of, push people out to vote for them. Andrew Yang interestingly said that he would put Garcia as his second choice, but Garcia did not say the same thing back. So meaning that she would not put Andrew Yang as her second choice. So it's all very interesting, and yet this round was probably the most consequential and the closest because it's really anyone's game here, and you see that we put Garcia losing by not that much, really, 31%, from 32 to 31. But we do think that because Andrew Yang may have been a bit underpolled, he actually does have a lot more support than one may really think. And it's also notable to note that Eric Adams has really stayed on the top throughout all these rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm not sure if you've mentioned this, but as you described to me earlier, Wiley supporters might see Adams as maybe, or Yang as a lesser of two evils compared to Adams, since Adams is more moderate, but we don't really know that for sure because we can't tell how people vote. But finally, the Garcia transfers. So I think we could be wrong on this one as well. If Yang were to make the final two, we gave Yang 17%, Adams 15%. Honestly, it could be more. The reason why we did hold back was because Garcia explicitly said this is not a cross endorsement. Maybe she's a little bit afraid that her supporters won't first choice her if she says that Yang is her second choice, and she wants them to put him as a second choice. And that's possibly because she doesn't think, or she thinks that she's going to lose votes that way. So if that logic comes true, maybe a lot of Yang's, Garcia supporters don't like Andrew Yang potentially. That would definitely make sense. So we gave Yang the majority, but not a defining majority. So we gave Yang 70%, and that would mean that Eric Adams would win this primary. So there are a few things that I do want to, critique of our prediction, which we could potentially be wrong on. We gave Andrew Yang 22%. That could be too high. We don't know yet. We'll find out tonight if this is too high or not, but this could potentially be too high. But, again, it's so hard to make these predictions. We chose, a number to compensate for the polling, maybe. It's tough. It's really tough. And I think the other thing we might get wrong is the Garcia transfers. Yang might end up getting more than this should he make the final two. But wow, you guys don't know. This was tough. Really tough. I think there was one more thing I wanted to critique. It was, Adams. I'm honestly not too sure on how much his story is going to be. It could be higher, it could be lower. I'm not 100% sure. But Eric, is there anything else you want to add here?
Yeah, just basically what you said. Yeah, I completely in agreement with you. It's really anyone's game. Once the less likely candidates of winning are going to be eliminated, and once their percentages are diverted, it's really anyone's game. And who knows what's going to happen in a couple of hours from now. It may be completely different and shock everyone. Is it likely? No. Is it possible? Yes. We're going to have to see. But, it's not a lot of people are making these predictions because it's there's too much ambiguity in what the numbers are actually going to be like and who's going to transfer to what because there's so many factors to consider when you can pick so many other candidates.
Exactly. And it's the fact that ranked choice voting is here as well. So all I'll say is we could be wrong. It's I wouldn't be surprised if we were wrong. This was very tough. But if it's wrong, we'll accept what's wrong and we'll analyze exactly what went wrong. But something else to add is after round one tonight, we'll be making future predictions because all the results are not going to come out tonight. Only round one will come out tonight. So we'll be making more predictions after this, after we get our round one's results, and use that as a baseline. But thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please like one. Please do. We took so long to make this. And if you like our content, please subscribe. And we'll see you in our next episode tomorrow.
See ya.